Hey everyone, Nick Chamberlain here, and I just wanted to let you know that we are coming out with new episodes very soon. So stay tuned, and you're going to love what we have to offer inside the offer. Hello and welcome to Inside the Offer, a podcast that is dedicated to connecting and bringing life to those who are on a mission to provide for their family by building their own successful business. We believe that the key to standing out in the crowded world of entrepreneurship is having a unique offer that sets your business apart. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent looking to create a side hustle, a recent college graduate with an entrepreneurial spirit, or a seasoned business owner, this podcast is for you. We'll sit down with individuals who have navigated the unique challenges of self-employment to share their stories and insights. We'll uncover the paths that have led them to where they are today and the strategies they use to build and grow their businesses. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher so together we can inspire each other to reach our goals and create a fulfilling future for our families. Let's go! Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Offer. I am your host, Nick Chamberlain, and in today's episode, we are going to be speaking with Brad Endres. Brad is the CEO and founder of Avail Capital, which is a business consulting firm that specializes in startups and nonprofit organizations. Additionally, you'll get some insight into what Avail is doing by creating some new capital for those who are looking to start their own business or looking to scale and grow their business. And also, we'll take a behind-the-scenes look at Brad's consulting business and how that operates. This is a great episode, especially if you are looking to just get started and want to know a little bit about what it looks like to start your own business. Brad, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with Avail Capital?
Yeah, well, Avail, just like many people in the small business startup world, wasn't the first thing I decided to try to do. It's been the culmination of many years of trial and errors, learning experiences, kind of seemingly random things that have kind of coalesced into this idea of a company, of a firm, if you will. I would say it started, about 8 years ago now when I started, I did mission work with a group called Focus. It stands for the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. So what we do is we would go out on campus and meet young people. We'd have a team of 4, 2 guys, 2 girls, and the guys would go reach out to the guys, the gals would go reach out to the gals, and we would have Bible studies primarily, but we would also share life and kind of invest in these relationships to help people grow in the faith. We were a small business. There was a team of 4 on a big campus. I was at the University of Connecticut, and we'd have to go out and fundraise for our salary. We'd have to manage the team bank account to put on events on campus and such like that. And then we'd also just have to go to work every day. It was up to us to make our schedules. And we had a team director, which I eventually became, who was kind of our boss, but we really had to be very intentional and be very proactive about work. We could have just sat at home and played video games or drank coffee all day, but we didn't. We went on mission. So that was the first taste of what does it look like to work for myself. After Focus, I went and I started a master's program. I went into higher education. I got my master's. I was working towards a PhD, and I felt the call. God definitely asked me to consider going back into the mission world. And so I said yes to that. But this time, I wasn't joining a big organization that had been around for many years. I was starting up my own with a couple of friends. And so we jumped in to this new startup ministry, this outreach mission. That was called Crossroads for Christ. The little 4 here stands for that, C for C. And so we had to build everything from the ground up. It was the same idea, go and meet people and, bring the gospel to them. We were doing that to young professionals now instead of college students. But we had to grow all of our systems from the ground up. Fundraising, business structure, management, payroll, like all the little things that you never thought about because it's often like built for you. We had to build. And so after that, did that for a couple of years. We were able to make it work, myself and 2 other full-time staff members. And now I'm back here in Texas raising our kids. That was our impetus to get back home to the great state here. And then, I started looking around saying, what am I going to do for work? And I realized I kind of know how to start things and fundraise. So why don't I help other people do that too? And that kind of became a core component of the business model, is to help startups, especially nonprofit startups, get the revenue they need and to express their mission in a way that's convicting and compelling and can attract others to support them. And wrapped up in some other kind of venture capital type things. But at the core of it, we try to help startups gain the capital to get off the ground. And that's through a lot of different ways, but primarily it's through the startup consulting services type of thing.
Okay, so how did you start your own Crossroads for Christ in 2019? How did you start that? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, the friends I met during my time out on campus with Focus, they were just young adults like me in Connecticut. They were doing their own thing. They came up with the idea for C4C. They felt called to start it. I was kind of bringing some concepts that I learned from Focus, that I was taught on how to do this kind of mission work. I gave them a little bit of that at the very early stages, and then they kind of ran with it. And then when I got done with Focus and I came back in August, this is over the summer, right? So I left for a couple months to come back home to Texas. When I got back from my graduate work, they were hitting the ground running. They were trying to really put this thing together. And over time, I kind of became a consultant of sorts to them as they were growing this mission. And that involvement grew to me being involved with like the actual leadership team with many others over the next couple of years.
Nice. I think you mentioned this, but what was your master's degree in?
Sports medicine, sports physiology. Okay. So when I tell you, like, it's been God makes straight with crooked lines. Like, it's been a lot of different paths that just have brought me here. So.
Okay, no, that's beautiful.
Yep.
Man, okay, so then you left then to go to Texas to start your own thing with all these skills and knowledge that you've developed over the years.
You're right.
Right now, who are your ideal clients right now that you're kind of going after, and what is the offer that you're currently like offering them?
Sure. Yeah, my ideal client is anyone who's trying to start off the ground, right? Nonprofit or for-profit business, anyone who's trying to make their vision a reality and to try to create a mission that will actually do good in the world. We work with faith-centered people, faith-centered entrepreneurs, faith-centered founders who want to go out and do and feel convicted of whatever, work they feel called to do. We want to help them do it because the world needs people who don't just show up to get a paycheck, but who show up with some sort of vision in their mind of how the world can be better. And we want to help founders do that. And so our bread and butter is definitely fundraising for nonprofits. I mean, that is by and far our number one thing. But like revenue is revenue. You're either getting it from donors or you're getting it from customers. And so we help nonprofit and for-profit startups systematize themselves and to actually be intentional with their business so that way they can bring new donors in or bring new customers in so that way they can grow and scale appropriately to reach the vision that they have. And we help them shape that vision too, because everyone has something. Everyone's driven by something. Even if you try to suppress that and you're just kind of going through life, like there's something inside of you that wants to come out to make a difference. And so we try to unlock that with people and help those who have already kind of taken that step along the way to get there, to make that vision a reality. We want to help them do it because trust me, like I've been there where you sit around saying, we feel convicted of this mission to like go out and bring the gospel to young adults. And then you look around going, well, how are we going to pay? How are we going to get paid? How are we going to, like I had a family, how am I going to support this family? The two other team members, they were also, they had to pay their bills. And so we had to learn a lot during that time frame. And that's what I want to bring to people to say, hey, I know the direction. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of just, the analogy would be like taking a machete and just hacking away through the forest. We want to help you go in the right direction so that way, you can achieve the goals that you have for yourself.
All right. So you have all these ideas to help all these different businesses and peoples and startups, but how do you actually go out and what's and find them, what's your current client acquisition strategies? And which ones have been fruitful for you and maybe not so fruitful?
Great. Yeah. So right now, I'm kind of in the startup phase myself, right? This new business venture that I've got going on. So I'm really tapping into my network. I've been blessed with, the last 7 or 8 years working in especially the Catholic world, the Catholic mission world. And a lot of those people have gone on to start up their own missions or to start up their own ventures. And so I just plug into those friendships, those connections that I've maintained over the last 8 years. And have just, when I started out, I sent an email blast and I said, hey, everyone, this is what I'm doing. If you are interested in working with me, please let me know. That bore fruit. It wasn't like 100% hit rate, but it was enough to get me 1 or 2 clients to get off the ground.
Yeah.
So I started there. And then secondly, I started texting close friends, asking them who they knew that works with people like my client base. So who are those who create websites? Who are those who do marketing, like video marketing? Who are those who are involved in digital media? Who are those who work for like other mission organizations? And so I got connected with them and I just told them what I did. I said, hey, I'm working with nonprofits to help them fundraise. I honed in, right? I do a lot more than that, but I honed in with that specific sector because that was my specialty. That was the easiest way for me to get in to work and to get clients. And it was the best return I could give on my time. I didn't have to go buy anything new. It was all knowledge. It was all experience. So it was low overhead service, that I could provide. So that first batch was emailing everyone. That second kind of outreach strategy was just individual texting and calling and asking. And I'd get connected with, 2 or 3 more. And then lastly, I would go on those different membership websites, I guess is the best way to say it. I got on, LinkedIn or alumni groups of focus, right? I got on other different kind of communities of people who were faith-centered, who might be wanting to start their own thing. And so I would scroll and read, and then I would reach out to them and say, hey, sounds like you are doing something that I might be able to help you with. Would you want to talk? And then we would just talk. And I've got a few clients that way. So that was when I first started. And then now it's basically word of mouth, right? So you got to get off the ground somehow. And then your clients start referring you to other people. And that helps a lot.
How long have you been starting up your business for now?
Yeah, full-time I started in November of 2021. So we're coming up on a year.
Wow, you did all that work in a year? Or it's been a little more than a year doing all this process, but, building Avail Capital.
Yeah, I spent 3 or 4 months from summer of last year to kick off on November 1. I used that time to think about my strategy, build my systems, start kind of putting pieces into play, like the software, the website, the email that I needed to use. Like an outreach strategy for client engagement and acquisition. I created all of that during those 3 or 4 months. I read a lot of books, I talked to a lot of people, and then I was ready to go on November 1. I kind of hit play, and then boom, all of that networking, all of that outreach went out, and I went after it and tried to cultivate it.
What were the specific books that helped you along the way, or who were a couple of mentors that you had that kind of shaped your journey?
I would say for the business, Traction. So it's by Gino Wickman, the book Traction.
Okay.
That's a great book. It's more of a systematic, like businessy textbook, so it's not like a business novel, or it's not like an inspirational kind of go get 'em book. It's very much like how to, and it's technical, right, in that regard. But what Gino does in that book is he gives you an operating system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS for short. And it gives you a guideline on how to basically take everything that's in your head. Like, I want to go and create a consulting company, right? That's in my head. And it takes that and it puts it onto paper, so that way you can actually build traction. You can grow because you're putting thoughts into actual, tangible, practical steps. And it keeps you accountable because there's worksheets and there's stuff that you put together to help you kind of stay on track, if you will. So Traction's great. I recommend it for anyone. Secondly, there's a concept or a book. It's also both, right? I haven't read the book version. I've just listened to this guy. Believe his name's Cameron Harold talk about this. It's called Vivid Vision. And so that's a second resource that I think is super important for people because that helps you lay out a vision, like I talked about earlier. Like, what kind of vision do you want to have for your company? What kind of impact in the world do you want to have? So you start 5 years down the road, like best case scenario. You put down your revenue numbers, you put down your customer numbers, you put down, or your client numbers, you put down the type of office that you'll have and how many employees, right? The sky's the limit. You really just kind of create a story and you write what that looks like 3 to 5 years from now, and you put it into paper. And then from that, you kind of work backwards. Once that's drafted, you work backwards and you create a business plan to achieve that. So that was super helpful too. It's more conceptual or theoretical, right? It's up in your head, but it allows you to kind of paint a desired outcome. And then you could work backwards and use the EOS to create an actual map to get there. And that's good. It was very helpful for me.
Yeah, and I also like when you're building your own business, like to have that future outlook, but also to like have your business planned around your life, rather than have your life planned around your business. So I don't know if it goes into that aspect at all.
Yeah, it does. And mine, like I wrote, just full disclosure, I wrote mine as like a newspaper article, like someone coming to like interview me in 5 years. And I wrote it like that. And it did have elements of the business, but it also had elements of the business culture and as well as my family life, because part of Avail Capital is not just what Brad wants. It's also the work of Brad and Mary Endres, right? What kind of life do we want to build together as a family, my wife? What do we want that to look like in 5 years? Because it's like you just said, the business cannot take over and become priority in my life. Why did I leave C4C? Why did I not go get a W-9 or W-2 job?
Yeah.
Why am I doing it this way? Is because I want to ultimately, my wife and I together, we decided we want to have a life that we can have control over, that we can put family first, that we don't always have to work to get more. We could put a business into play that could provide for our needs and our freedom, right? Financial and personal freedom, the flourishing of our children, of our communities, right? All the things that we hold dear, as well as the same for our employees, hopefully one day, So we want to build that out for them too.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like a trend going on or if I'm just like hanging around more people with the same mindset. It's just like, I want to build, a better life for me and my family, like around like our terms. Well, using the gifts and talents that I've been blessed with, in particular. And so I can build this business so I can actually take care of them. And then we can actually go out into the world to do what we need to do and have the freedom and options and choices to do what we would like to do, but not so much like it kind of sounds like selfish. I want to do what I want to do when I do it. But
yeah,
there's a lot of freedom with it, but then there's no cap, there's no limit as well. So it's also kind of terrifying because also no one's telling you what to do or exactly how to do this. You're just learning from everyone. And that's like a big part of this podcast is just for me to go out there and to reach out and to connect with people like you to see how people are actually making this happen. So if anyone is listening in like 5 to 10 years from now, if anyone is like 20, 25, 30, they're trying to figure out like, okay, well, how can I provide for my family? How I can actually make a living doing this without actually just being plugged into the system of like, you get trained to do a specific job for a specific company. And so when you get out of that into the real world, like outside of doing that, it's a very daunting place.
Sorry, I was just going to add to what you said because I agree with it 100%, like right now, right, in America, we train people to act a certain way and think a certain way, especially about their finances. And we're taught, through school, go to work for a good company and get a solid, good job or a good paycheck that is stable and that'll provide. And that's not bad advice, right? But no one gets taught how money actually works and how those companies actually got to where they are. They had people, business people, founders who created that company. They saw a need to create value in the world in whatever way, from Coca-Cola to Apple to, Amazon, right? There was a value that they saw was lacking in the world, and they created it. So they're the ones reaping the rewards. So it's important for anyone, founder, startup entrepreneur, or just W-2 worker. All of them are equally good. It's just, like you said, what kind of life do you feel called to lead? And I would an analogy or analogous kind of way to look at this is like the virtue of humility isn't just saying, oh, I'm nothing, And when people say to be humble, right, they think that, oh, I just got to limit myself. It's not. It's seeing you as you really are. And if you've got faith behind you, if you're a Christian, it's seeing you in the eyes that God sees you. And that sometimes can be like, I'm the only one qualified or skilled enough to do X, right?
Yeah.
Or God's just asking me to provide for my family and have a factory job. Like, that's great too. My dad was that way. So it's not unhumble to look and say, like, I need to create something because I feel convicted of it. It might just be what God's asking you to do. If you're non-spiritual, I would say let's talk because you should. But it might just be that you're convicted of something, right? You have a desire to make a difference in the world, and that's fine too. And I would just say for anyone listening, don't be afraid to tap into that and go after it after a period of discernment and thinking about it.
So for me, I was, a full-time audio engineer at Catholic Answers for 7 years, and then went to become a freelancer on the side to gain additional income for my growing family. And then we moved to Texas. And now it's just like, I've been looking for a full-time job. And then every time I try to get one, it's just like door close and door close. Like I just can't get one. And then I'm like, all right, God, well, are you sure you want me to build this business thing up? And so every time I work on it, it grows a little more, it grows a little more and grows a little more. But I was like, it would be so much easier if I could just have a job and someone can just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you're out on your own, doing your own thing, you have the creative freedom to use your gifts and talents up to 100%. And it is very difficult. Well, so far for me, I don't know if it's been easy for anyone, or if it's been easy for you, but
nope.
It's been super difficult, but it's also been so rewarding because, like I said, there's no limit to it. You can go reach out to as many people, you can help out as many people as possible. I mean, there's a place and time for everything, depending on what job you're doing. But at this point in my life, it's like I'm trying to help out as many people as I can. And right now, it's just funny, I went from musician to audio engineer to radio engineer to now podcast production. Yeah, that's okay. That's podcast production is great or whatnot. But I love like the business behind it and learning how everything operates. So that's why I'm like, we're going through your background. How'd you get into it? Your client acquisition, your education, who's your mentors to, I'd like to know like your sales process and like, there's just so much to talk about and to eventually like growing a team and like, well, how are you a leader? How are you leading your team? How are you developing your team? But right now for you, it's just you right now, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I'll just agree with you. Like you could spend an hour of a podcast on each one of those segments, right? And it feels like you're drinking water out of a fire hose a lot of times if you're in the startup world, because it's like, how do I do all of these at once when I'm the only one wearing the hat, right? I have to wear every hat.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now it's just me. I will say that my wife is really good at like creating content, like the branding on my website, right? The design, our material, our collateral, if you will, the stuff we hand out, at networking events, brochures, handouts, whatever it may be. She does all of that. She's the branding guru. I just kind of tell her what I would like, and then I let her go and do it. I try to outsource as many things as possible because what's the number one thing for a founder or a creator to do? What's the number one thing for them to have more of? It's time. Your time is your money because you can create, you can network, you can do these things that are over $100 an hour work. And that's a concept, right? Like if you're trying to think about how, if you're doing too much menial task, is it $100 an hour work? Like bookkeeping, doing my accounting is not $100 an hour work. I don't need to do like a transactions list and to plug everything in the right bucket. I need to get somebody out there who knows what they're doing, who could do it in
Yeah.
a fraction of the time it takes me to learn all this stuff. I need to go learn how to find new customers. I need to learn how to operate my business more systematically and efficiently. I need to learn how to, translate what I'm doing into a compelling narrative. All of these things are way more important than keeping my books, right? But I have to keep my books because for taxes and legal purposes. So I outsource that. I pay a consultant to do that. Same thing with legal, right? I could write up all of my contracts with clients and operating agreements, or I could hire a lawyer to do it.
But like as a startup, don't you have to do that yourself though? Because what comes first? You have to find the clients, then the money comes in, and then you have to do everything else. You're like, oh, well, now here's a legal document. And like, what's the process and the steps of like, how do you eventually like outsource everything? Like, or how did you do that?
I would say that, yes, there is an element of you just have to like get off the ground. So, I bought a subscription to QuickBooks Online rather than keep everything in an Excel file. I knew, and maybe that's a point that we could differentiate is find those systems that can help automate your work early on. And as soon as you possibly can, pass that off to a human who could do it. Like QuickBooks Online helped me systematize and streamline my accounting. And it took care of a lot of the like putting things into buckets, right? It would literally take my receipts and put them in, so that saves time. Things, like legal, I looked at stuff online, I found some templates, and then I sent it to my lawyer, right? So I kind of did a lot of the heavy lifting up front, and then I just passed it along and said, does this look good? So that was the next step. As far as like lead generation, I utilized what I had online. I used free, searching. I would go on these memberships like LinkedIn. I would go on these other portals with people involved. Using technology to your advantage early on helps minimize your time on something and maximize the return on your effort. But then getting it to a place where you can outsource quickly is really important. And what I would suggest a lot of startups do versus hold on to all the control. You could pass these off to people. And if you really want a practical way to do this too, you can look up virtual assistants. There's people in other countries who do all of this stuff. There are some companies that are like super big that all they use are virtual assistants, VAs. VAs for marketing, VAs for social media, VAs for accounting, VAs for, I wouldn't say legal because that's something you need local help with, but VAs for client and lead acquisition, all that kind of stuff. So that's another way to look into it too. It takes money, but at the end of the day, you're paying $30 an hour work so that way you can do $100 an hour stuff. So you get a net return, a net profit off of that purchase.
Yeah. So that's the journey to getting from, doing it yourself to getting it into someone else's hands and for you to continue to do the work that is going to ultimately, boost your business and bring in more income, which then you can then outsource again. And then your business grows and then you're supporting other people, which is amazing. Like an amazing thing that you can do with the business is to actually support your family, support other people and support their family. So that's another reason that I love, I got the business bug, just trying to grow it and help other people out. Can we now move into your sales process? Do you like the sales process? How do you what's the step for a client signs up and says, I want to meet with you, Brad. And then what's the next step that you do? Do you have a sales roadmap? Do you have everything or is it just like a one-on-one conversation? How does it work for you?
I think this is probably an area for my company that I could get better at is like systematizing the process for sure. And I think that's a good thing for everyone to do is create like a standard operating procedure from when they reach out to you in whatever way that is, either online or in person or through an email or text, whatever it is, that first interaction, streamline the process from there to like closing the deal and putting them into your customer base. Right now, because the volume that I'm working with, it's much more manageable than someone doing like online sales or some sort of thing like that, where they have a product. I really kind of take a more person-to-person approach where, yes, it's systematized or streamlined the way they can reach out to me. And that's why on my website, there's signups. That's why I send like little links to people, my clients. I'll send them a link for my calendar, right? So that way they could pass to friends. So there's just an easy way for them to get in touch with me. I have it on my email signature, like a link to connect with me. So all of these things make it as easy as possible for people to connect with me, which I think is super important. You want that to be as easy as possible. Take advantage of technology when you can to do that. But after that, it's a lot of me meeting with them in a one-on-one discovery call, right? Consulting is a very human, face-to-face, service industry. So I try to get in front of them as soon as I can. And then I walk with them after hearing what they need. I give them a roadmap of what kind of services I could provide. I set up a game plan for how we could work together to give them the services they need.
Do you do the close on the call? Do you talk numbers?
On the discovery call?
Yeah, or is it just like, and then afterwards you're like, okay, well, this sounds great. You're going to be a great client. I'm going to help you. And here, I'm going to send a proposal to you. Or has it changed over the years, or what's kind of your process?
My process is to give them numbers on the call. I created like some packages, just to have templates of services, right? And on one hand, right, I'll just be clear with the listeners here. Like on one side of that spectrum is like strictly fundraising coaching, like how do you fundraise? And then on the other side of that spectrum is really just business development, like how do you create the systems to scale and grow? And there's everywhere on that, there's a couple places on that spectrum that have a more of a mesh between the two. So I have standardized packages so that way I know going into a call, like what can I offer immediately if they just say, shoot me what you think I need. But if I hear, and so I can give them that, and there's a price attached with that. Like I went through and I calculated what would be a just and reasonable price. So I can give them something right away. If they want a little bit more customization, well, then I have these packages to play from or to play off of, and then I'll just give them something that sounds like it somewhere in the middle, and then the prices are reflective of that work. And so I make it super easy where I can just have a Zoom call and look on my other computer and be like, oh, this is what I could do for you. I have the price there. They know everything. They know what they're getting. And then I could also naturally kind of customize that on the fly if I need to. But I'll do that during a discovery call for sure. And I'll give them one of those packages or one type of service package that I think would work for them. And I'll give them a number for them to discern about.
One of the most difficult things to do as, a freelancer turning into a business owner or a business owner starting a business, well, for me, from my perspective, was coming up with pricing. Like, what is the price and price model? So for me, I would go to other websites and see what they were charging. And then I was like, all right. And then I would just have an internal feeling of I think this feels good. But then I did hire a business coach, and we broke down all the hours of everything I was doing and saw how much I was charging. And he broke down the hourly rate. He's like, you're only making about $5 to $7 an hour, even though it seems like, you're charging $60, $70 a project, and you're just like, well, I thought I was making more money than that. But no, how do you come up with your pricing structure and how much you price? Is it based on the market value, what other people are doing? Is it based on your needs and how much you need to provide for your family? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but what I would do first is I had friends who did consulting work, right? I would do my market research. Like, what do you guys charge? And they were a bigger, more institutional firm. They'd been around for many years. So they were name brand basically. So I asked them, okay, what does name brand charge? And I asked them their per hour rate for a variety of different services. And so then I plugged all that in and I Google searched, right? But you can't really trust everything you see online. And so I kind of referenced the two, and I saw what was a good kind of middle ground between that. So I use that as standard rate, what it would cost the people I work with to get the same services from a name brand or institutional consulting firm. I'd line it all up by hours, right? Hours time hourly rate, and I would equal that all up. And then I would see what that amount was. And then I would take a 20 to 30% discount off the top of that, because I'm working with startups who don't have all the money in the world, right? So I want to reflect and help startups. And I'm also a startup, right? So there's an element of I can't charge brand name cost because I'm not a brand name yet, even though I believe in what I do. So I would take a percentage off that made sense for, okay, like how much do I need to raise for my family? How much is a good living wage? What's reasonable, right? I can't do 90% discounts off of this. But, I found in a happy medium, which really is between 10 and 20% off of this, the name brand stuff. And then that would be my package. I mean, that's literally kind of how I went about it.
That's great. And then every 6 months or a year, you raise it 3-4%, and then over time you'll eventually be there. And after 2 or 3 years, you have the experience that you need. And then it's eventually after 10, 15 years, then you're up there with the other brand names.
Correct.
All right. So after you go through the sales process and they say yes, you send contracts, everyone signs everything. What does like a typical project look like, and what's your delivery look like?
Right. So we'll take my like fundraising clients, as an example here. And what that looks like is I'll walk them through a workshop, like a fundraising coaching workshop, where they'll go from zero experience, zero knowledge at all. And we go through 5 hours. So it's a boot camp. It's like super quick. But we go through 5 hours of coaching to get them to a place where they can actually sit in front of someone just like this in person and invite them to support their mission. So they'll get all of the different skills, like interpersonal skills, conversational skills, the scripts that are effective. They'll get kind of the mindset of fundraising, like how it really is ministry and mission oriented. It's not just this necessary evil, right? It's an integral part of what they do. We'll talk about that to get them in a place that's ready to actually go out. So that's like a heavy piece of what that looks like. I give them a booklet so that way they can reference it along their way. And then I'll help after that, I'll have weekly accountability calls with them, coaching calls where we'll sit down and we'll make a game plan for that next group of donors they'll engage. We try to create a house file of sorts, like a list of names they can reach out to. I'll help them craft that. I'll help them create material to hand out at these meetings, like collateral, like I mentioned earlier, the brochures, the handouts, the letters, pledge cards, whatever it may be. I help them craft these things that are on brand and compelling and have a unified message across the multiple different types of material, right? So that way they'll come in, they'll look super professional, they'll know what to say, they'll know how to say it, and they'll ask in a way that gives people a reason to say yes. And so, that's kind of what we offer to those types.
Wow. No, that's a lot of work right there. So that's a great offer you have there. What wisdom or advice that you'd have for startups in general? Like what kind of like mindset should they have like going into starting up, whether it's becoming like a freelancer to a business owner or just straight into like out of college or changing career paths, maybe like going into starting a business?
Yeah, I would say before anyone starts their own thing, they have to know why they're doing it. You have to be able to convey the message of why is this important enough to me to leave behind everything I've been doing to start up my own thing or to try to build this from the ground up. Without a why, everything just becomes work. And you might as well just go get a W-2 job, which means work for somebody else who cuts your paycheck, right? Like, don't burn and fail and get burnt out without a conviction behind it. And that's what I would say to anyone who's starting out. Find out what your why is so that way you can build everything around that why. Because that why will get you through the very thin moments of your career, right? Or your job, your company, when there's not a lot of money coming in. It'll get you through the trying times. It'll help you stay grounded through the good times where everything's going right. You're killing it. You're crushing it. You're doing well. It'll help you stay grounded to why you started in the first place. So that way you don't drift off your mission. That way you don't, start seeing yourself as better than you really are. And it just helps you stay in this grounded playing field. So that way every decision you make from the bad times to the good times can be made from the same place of your desire to change the world in whatever way.
Well said, Brad. So what does the future of Avail Capital look like? And what are some kind of, services you're going to offer or other projects that you have coming up that we should look forward to?
Sure. So yeah, Avail, I would say this, Avail's a Catholic venture capital firm. We're a benevolent venture capital firm is another way to say it. And so we try to grow capital and then we give it away in the future and we help people guide that capital that they get from us. And so to that end, we're trying to grow our client base to help our startup clients, but we're also growing our capital in a real way through real estate investing. So both of those things are going on right now. I've got a lot of clients that I'm helping build their businesses to help grow the human and the organizational and the system capital for their business. But then I'm also out there in the real estate world, taking down new deals, trying to grow that little portfolio there so that way we can give away financial capital in the future. So it's a lot, but right now that's kind of where we're at right now is growing the real estate side and then growing the number of clients that we have on the consulting side. And it's going well so far. There's a lot of momentum.
That's great. What would be the best way for someone to reach out to you, connect with you, or to learn more about you and your business?
They could go on our website, www.availcapitaltx.com. And they could learn more about our consulting services there. They can sign up to our newsletter. We send that out every once in a while, so that way they can stay up to date with what we're doing. We do have an Instagram handle. There's nothing posted yet, but we're about to get that off the ground. And the handle is at Avail Capital TX. And they could see the projects we're working on the real estate side. They could see kind of the renovations that we've got going on. We've got some cool commercial properties that are being renovated for some cool business models here in the next couple months. And so that's more of our real estate front. So they want to know about our consulting, go to the website. They want to know more about our real estate adventures. They could go and look at our Instagram.
Perfect. And I will have all of that on the show notes, which will be available at untitled.chapter.com. And thank you so much, Brad, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nick. This was awesome. Love doing these things. So thanks for inviting me on.
And thank you so much for sticking around and listening to this entire episode. If you missed any of those links, you can easily find them by going to the show notes page, which is found at insidetheoffer.com/5. If you or anyone you know would like to be on this podcast to showcase their business or and to help the listeners out with any aspect of business, you can do so by going to insidetheoffer.com and by clicking on the message tab. I invite you to please hit subscribe and follow so you don't miss out on the next episode of Inside the Offer. We are going to be talking with Taylor Martin. He is a designer that specializes in the triple bottom line. What's that? That's the people, profit, and planet. If you want to learn more about Taylor and to hear how he has started his business and grown it into a successful design agency, then you do not want to miss the next episode of Inside the Offer. Hey everyone, Nick Chamberlain here, and I just wanted to let you know that we are coming out with new episodes very soon. So stay tuned, and you're going to love what we have to offer inside the offer.